All right, so it looks like from the red dot in the corner that we're live. Good morning and welcome to you, Helen, my sister Helen, if I can call you so. Thank you so much for making the time to join me for a coffee with Kofi.
I have a bucket of green tea, Kofi.
All
anyone
right.
anyone that knows me, I don't actually do coffee, but I do green tea by the bucket load. So
Love this. I don't discriminate. If it's hot and it makes you happy, then I'm happy. So that's brilliant. I'm really pleased that you've decided to join me on today's conversation, which, as you know, is all about sharing the journeys of others that decide to go on the road less travel, and pivot on a purpose, which could be for them, their families, the communities they serve, but also globally as well, which can be the nature of our work. So thank you so much for saying yes without too much arm twisting and convincing. And it'd be lovely if, for those that haven't come across you yet, you could give us a bit of an introduction as to who you are and what it is that you do, and then we'll let the conversation meander. Two chatty patties. This is going to be
Kofi, we could be in trouble. But yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm really pleased to join you from a sunny London. Actually, it's really beautiful here today. So for those that don't know me, my background is in financial services. I have 20 plus years where I worked for Barclays, where we met, or where we have through legal in general, and I had various different roles, always on the investment side, but lots of different roles there. And more recently, I've now qualified as a professional coach. So I'm an exec coach and mentor in that senior leadership space in financial services. So still using all of that experience, all the professional qualifications, and then working to really help people just be at their best, using all that experience, all that knowledge. And it can be, people come to me because it might be they just need that thinking space, they need to work out what they want to do next, they're starting a new role and they need some support with that. Maybe it's their first time in that head of role or that C-suite role, and that's really in the space in financial services where we can work together and I can support them with that.
It's fantastic. So it's that I love the fact that you marry the experience that you've got and understanding what it is to be on the inside of a sector that we both know really well, but then to support individuals, because I heard the other day, and I think it's true, like the further up you go in an organization, the lonelier it is, because like a pyramid, there are fewer people there, and you're relied upon to sort of lead a lot of people. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I also think as well that the higher up you go, people expect you to have the answers, whether that's actually yourself, like maybe yourself, you think, I should know this, if you know this, I should be able to cope with this. So whether that's the pressure you put on yourself or others in terms of looking to you for always having those answers, it's definitely, it can get trickier as you rise up to the top.
Fantastic. No, it's so true. And to peel, like I think we're like onions, right? So we've got the outer skin and then we've got the inner layer. So that's the outer layer of you, founder of Helen Schoeb, and recently XFS, which I'd love to talk about because that's very exciting for us. But in terms of other responsibilities, in terms of life, is that all that you have to do? I say, is that all, as if that's not enough, but what else?
No. So I am a mum as well. So I'm a mum to 2 teenagers.
Okay.
Yep. so outside of work, I am busy in work and I love coaching. And I hope that comes across with anyone that I talk to. I'm passionate about the power of coaching. But outside that coaching, when I'm at home, I've got 2 kids, keep me very busy. We live just outside London, which I miss my sea view. Again, anyone that knows that originally I'm from the Isle of Man, and I absolutely love being by the sea. If I don't get to the sea, I start getting a bit itchy feet. So you'll find by the sea. And then also I am a massive music fan. So I always have multiple things in my diary. Some of them are determined by my teenage daughter. So they might be people that I don't know, I've never heard of, and some of them are mine. So so if I'm not coaching, I'm generally with the kids, with my family, and with my friends.
Oh, fantastic. And listen to some music. I think that's one of the things that we connected over, because I think there was a concert that you got a ticket for recently, and I want to say it was a female, either Taylor Swift or Billie Eilish. One of the two comes to mind. Are
I
both
guess
of those
I've seen
like
them
that?
both.
Yes. I mean, who haven't you seen, Helen? Who haven't you? That's probably a better place to start.
There are a few people, and like my kids quite often say to me, I bet you've seen them, I bet you've seen them. But there are a few people that actually I haven't seen, and I'm sure I will at some point.
Amazing. Well, for another conversation, we'll get into it. But however you get your tickets, holler at your boy, because I'd love to come
Kofi,
to
it's getting harder. It's
it
getting
is.
harder. It feels like sometimes it's a war with Ticketmaster. But yeah.
You've got all the devices open, just doing what you can order. So fantastic. Well, coming back to work, your journey, you mentioned Barclays, and then see a number of years at Legal and General. So with 10 years or so at Barclays, and then another
and more.
almost,
Yeah.
more. Yeah. So talk me through, because I think for others listening, and definitely for me, it's just interesting in terms of the myth around linearity. Do we have to end where we started? Can we take twists and turns on as we flow through the rivers of life? And so if you could start us through, like, when you started at Barclays, what was your role? What did you do? And then take us through sort of the different things that you've done at Legal & General, because I think that would be quite interesting, just to highlight some of the navigation.
No, of course. So when I started, I didn't actually go to university. On the Isle of Man, there's a very big financial sector. Most people I work in banks, offshore finance. That was the path that I thought I would always take. And I looked at it and thought, actually, me going to university isn't going to help with that. I wasn't going to be a lawyer. I wasn't going to be a doctor. So I thought, actually, what I want to do is just get started, do professional qualifications, and then just, really get my hands dirty and get stuck in. And that's what I did. And I started, to think about how the world of work has changed. But I started at Barclays, and when I joined generally, the company was quite small. I mean, it's grown massively over the years, but it was quite small because it was the private banking section. So it was the Barclays private bank. And in that, there was the investment department. Started generally helping with the investment administration. So, I'd be helping to do the portfolio valuations. I'd be doing a lot of the support for the investment managers there. And that was that was my first taste into investments. I can remember we used to get the Investors Chronicle at the end of the week. We used to get the buy list of the bonds from, the London office. And that's where I really started. That's where I started to get really interested in that investment world. I did the Securities Institute exams. And from there, that's when I just worked hard. I just really enjoyed it. I got on well. I could see how I wanted to progress. And within that, I became manager of the investment administration area. I was 22, and I was actually the youngest manager they'd had, like, on the island in that department. And that was a big shift. That's when I then started really meeting the clients, really getting more involved. I actually started having a team. It was challenging. They were older than me. But I still was then starting to do more with clients as well, manage all the administration, and that's where I focused. I ended up, before I moved to London, I ended up there then running their middle office. So I took that investment side and then took other areas as well, looking at how we service the clients. And then it was at that point where I'd met my partner, who's now my husband, who'd come to work on the Isle of Man. And he then was at a stage where he needed to go back to London, and we had the conversation. And that's when I decided that I would move with him to London. So that was my journey in Barclays. So it's very much that investment side, servicing clients, and then that middle office, running a team. I really enjoyed it. I worked with some amazing people, and it was like a great, I say first job, it went on for a long time and it transitioned. I mean, that was the first job. And I took the professional qualifications. Again, that just sort of was an area that I loved. I moved to London, and we took some time out. We traveled in between. I could have transferred with Barclays. We decided not to. We took some time out. We traveled, which was just fantastic. Like getting that time in a career where you can actually take time out. It was amazing. Like if anybody gets the opportunity to do that, I would absolutely be like, do it.
Yeah.
Do
And
it.
where were some of the places that you went to, or was it a single stop?
No, we traveled. We went all the way around. So we went around. We spent some time in Thailand. We went to Australia. We did New Zealand. We came back through via the States. Like it was amazing. So I always say it was quite fortunate that we had a wedding to come back to. So that was our stop date. We had to come back. Otherwise, who knows how long we might have been.
On the road.
Circling the globe. But we came back, and then I came to London, and I was really like, let's just see what's out there, what I want to do next. And I was actually quite surprised that when I first came to London, and this again is like 20, it's a long time ago.
People are going to ask to see some ID, Helen. Well, that's all I'm saying. If you say big numbers,
I need a filter. But I was really surprised that I spoke to some recruitment consultants, and they said, well, there'll be a lot of people that aren't interested because you haven't been to university, you haven't been to the right schools, right. you don't have the experience. And I'm like, okay, I've worked like for a long time. I've run the middle, like I know investments, I'm professionally qualified. And they were like, yeah, but some people just look at a CV, and if you haven't been to university, the investment banks aren't interested. And I was like, oh, these might not be my people in London. They might not be my people. But I sort of took some time, had a look around, and that's when I landed at Elgin. And when I joined Elgin, I joined what was called their FOGS team, which is their FOGS, FOG, which everyone's always like, well, what on earth? But it was their fund operating guidelines team. And the way that I would describe it now is it's basically front office compliance, making sure that all the fund managers only do what they're supposed to do, agreeing the guidelines with the clients. And it was brilliant. I loved it. It really played to my sort of broad experience of understanding that investment world. It helped that I'd been used to dealing with clients. I understood the operations, so if we had breaches where a fund manager was like, well, it's not me, it's the system's not processed something properly, I'd be like, really? And I could understand, how things work behind the scenes. They're like, I'm not sure that valuation's correct. I'm like, okay, let's take a look at it. And so I had the knowledge of actually the investment process, client guidelines, all of that. So I did that around that team, and it gave me such a broad exposure because it touched every department. Right. So, you had to understand all the back operations, like how everything worked. You had to understand the front office, the investment guidelines. You had to be able to communicate with clients, look at their investment guidelines. You had to deal with compliance, legal, all of them. So in a big company, I got to know a lot of people because it went around. So I did that role for, I want to say it's about 5 years, but I really loved it. But then, there was changes. There's always changes. I'd done it for a long time. I quite often have the conversation with clients, actually, like how long is a good time to be in a job?
Really good question.
Like, yeah, how long, when does it feel right to make a change? When do you maybe think, actually, I'd be better doing something else? So at that time, I actually then made a switch to go into what was called their distribution department. Sure. Corporate pensions, whatever you want to call it. And then I actually took over the client relationship side of the investment portfolio. So I would go out and speak to trustees and clients, and we'd pitch for business. And I loved it. It was, again, I was able to understand the client requirements. I was able to talk to clients. I was able to then really think about actually, how are we going to manage that? What could be the issues? What could be the risks with that? What makes us different in terms of winning the business? Where's our edge? And so I love that. And again, it stretched me. It got me out of the office more. I'd been, very much internal. It got me out of the office, traveling, meeting clients, being able to talk about what Elgin could offer. And then that's when I had my first child. So that's why I took my first maternity leave. I was fortunate that I took plenty of time out and really enjoyed that time at home. And then when I went back and I wanted to go back part-time, I really didn't feel that that role was suitable for part-time. Again, like my eldest is 15 now, so it's quite a long, it's quite a long time. But even then, I will admit that people were open to have the conversations about, well, let's see how we can make that work. And, at that time, the people I worked with in Elgin was brilliant around having those conversations to how can we support you? What do you need? Right. But I just didn't feel that for me, it would work. I'd sat in pitches where we'd been trying to win the business and saying about it's around the client service. I'm account manager, whatever you need, I will be able to help you. They bought into the person. If you're selling index funds, for example, like the margins are so tight, they could choose from, providers that are quite similar. So they buy into the people. Like you'll hear me say a lot, like it's always about the people, it's about the relationships. And so they buy into people. And I said, I just can't go and do those pitches. I can't manage clients on the basis that I'm the person that only 3 days a week. It just
That's a difficult balance, isn't it? Because, and it's so interesting that you say about the person aspect. The conversation that I had recently with Xavier Louise, he said that he starting up his own business, he has investors that will invest in him more than the idea, because usually the idea will change, but they believe in him. So it sounds like a very similar sort of thing where essentially people are buying into Helen, and if Helen's on the job, then they know they're happy, and if you're not, then it sounds like that was a dilemma that you had to sort of
I think it is really interesting. And again, like when I talk to clients, it's like is it the boss or is it the business? You can look, and it makes a massive difference, the people that you're going to be working with and who you're spending time with. But yeah, it was a real dilemma. I definitely didn't want to step off that, what I call a corporate, I wasn't ready to step back from corporate life. I loved being at home with my daughter, but I was ready to get back to work. I was ready to be challenged in a different way. I actually just wanted to be able to eat my lunch in peace.
Yeah. This is the thing, being a parent, it's not your time. It's just not your time. And anytime, any place, anywhere, child needs you.
Honestly, I can remember getting back to work and just being like, oh, this is cool. I don't have to feed anybody else. I don't need to. I can just choose my own lunch. I can just eat it. This is amazing. Anyway, I digress. But at that point, I had lots of conversations. And when I looked at Elgin, there was various departments and different ways I could have gone. But I actually landed in the product team. So they had like a product development team. I went back and I was then a technical specialist, project manager, in terms of this is what we want to do. There you go, Helen. Can you help sort that out? And again, from the connections that I had and the knowledge I had, I loved it. It was great. It was challenging to manage part-time, but it was possible. And again, there was a team and people were really supportive of me. I wasn't back very long. And then I had my second, again, took a bit more time out. And then when I went back, I landed again back in the product team. There had been some changes over that time, and they'd split the area to be more strategy, so product strategy and then product implementation. So actually, what do you think we should do over there? Can you just make it happen? And so I sat on the team where it's like, okay, this is what you need to make happen. And so on that fund implementation team. So it was, again, great people, loved it. But that part-time was tricky, because there's always funds launching, there's always fund changing, there's always a lot to manage, and a team. When I was on the product team before, I didn't have a team. I was more just like, I was the expert and I did what I needed to do. I didn't have
a new role sort of thing. Yeah.
When I went back, it's then like, okay, well, you can run that team, but there's people like you. One person can't do that in Elgin. So there was a team of people doing it, and then I found that a real struggle. I mean, if you ask the team, they probably would say, yeah, it's fine. We can manage and we could cope, but it didn't sit very well with me in terms of I I felt like they needed more from me than I could give. And I nearly stepped out at that point in time, nearly stepped out of the corporate world to just sort of think, okay, what do I want to do now? But I actually then transitioned into a role as a risk management consultant, because they were like, actually, like, we don't want you to go. You've got so much knowledge, so much experience. We don't want you to go. How can we make this work? And then for a while, I sat on the risk management team as a consultant on the new products. So if they were thinking, like, we're going to launch this, we're going to do that, I would then just have the oversight from that risk management perspective. Or if there was things in the funds that might not have gone as planned, like, can you have a look at that? And can we look at how we can solve some of those issues and things? I loved it. But again, it got to the point where, and it is as you say, it's a parent thing. It got to the point my eldest was going to school. I then looked and thought, oh my word, they have so many holidays. I thought when they went to school, that's when you could really get back into your working life. And it's actually the reverse. It became so much harder I don't have family here. I don't have that sort of support network. It was nursery before then, that was part-time nursery, but then in school it's a different game. And I just sort of thought at that time, it's now a lifestyle choice. And that's when I decided to step out of the corporate world, spend a bit more time settling kids into school, and then thinking, actually, what does the next phase of career look like? And then that's a very long way of getting me to.
No, well, before, because I think there's, for those that are in financial services and know something of it, they'll know LGIM is like legal and general investment management. And I just had a couple of questions, because you talked about starting off in the private bank. So in terms of the private banking clients you had, what types of, because I know they segment it differently, so what types of client were you dealing with there?
So when I was in the Isle of Man, they were individuals. Right. So I dealt with, a lot of people use the private bank for trust funds, for offshore companies. And then within that, they might have an investment portfolio. But a lot of the clients that I dealt with anyway were very much private individuals that were investing their assets. They might have put some money into the trust for their children. Some of it might have been in property and things, which was a different department, but it was more like, this is the cash that's being invested. So it was always individuals. Some of them on the Isle of Man, some of them overseas, but it would always be the individual. Whereas the difference in legal in general, they would have been institutional clients. So they were institutional pension funds. So when I would go and see that client, it would be the trustees or the organisation, rather than the individual's money, that I was talking to them about how they'd invested their own personal wealth.
That makes sense. And with the private bank, was there sort of a limit in terms of how much, or a floor as to how much you must earn to be able to be considered? So I know there's high net worth and then ultra high net worth. Are we talking that sort of person, or is it man?
So the way that it would have been structured, and I don't know now what the limits would be, but they would have been what would have been normal retail banking. Like, you go onto the high street, there's your bank. If you had a certain limit, then you would go into what at that time was called premier banking. So it was like a little bit more, which meant you might have got a slightly different account and you got slightly different access to a relationship manager. And then you moved up. And then if you had as you say, they have different terminology, but over a certain limit, then you would qualify to be one of the private banking clients.
Okay. All right, fascinating. And what has come to me, as you know, you've taken us through that career history of yours, and it's extensive, and it's worth the time in exploring. There are a few things that I picked up. See, the sector remains the same, but the client focus has been different. So we took private banking to the institutions, which you just covered. The roles that you have coming in from administration, and then moving through to manage, and then getting more involved in the investment side. Then we've talked about compliance. Then there's been risk. Then there's been distribution before risk, if I remember the sequence of events. Those technical skills are not necessarily, if I open the careers book, one that I would see all sitting next to each other. So I'm really interested in exploring how it was that you kind of made the move to different technical areas, really, because I think that might help some people who are thinking, oh, this is what I've always done, and therefore this is what I'll always do. If you could share a bit of light as to how you went about, doing that.
I think it's all about, from my experience, it's around being open to learning. So it's being open to understanding more about what actually goes on in the business. You know, even from that very first role, I was thinking, what do they do over there? How does that fit together? Like, just having that interest rather than, you know, head down just doing what you're doing, to think about how things hang together. Also, I would say it's all about relationship building, knowing the people, understanding those people, and talking to people about, you know, what you're interested in, what you're good at. I know from the conversations that I'd had, people could see that I worked hard, I got results, I got on with people, and that it would be like, actually, we can't let her go. Where can we fit her in? And
Right.
I would be open to I'm pretty sure I could do a lot of things. There'd be some things that I would say, nope, that's not for me. That's definitely not for me, Kofi. But then there'd be I'd look at it and go, yeah, I could see, yeah, that's interesting to me. I could understand that. Yep, I could certainly fit into that team. I've got skills that I could bring, like that's playing to my strengths. Like, I quite often talk to people about what's important, like think about what's important to you, and your values can be the same, like even in different jobs. Like, it's about the culture and about the type of team. So as long as that was, you know, that was being, those boxes were being ticked, like most of the people I really loved working with. Like, let's be honest, you're not going to get on with everybody. You're not going to get on with everybody all of the time. But on the whole, I really, really love the people. And it's like having conversations with them about, you know, what could you see me doing? Where could you see me fitting in? But it was, about using the skills that I've got, and they're transferable, right?
Yeah.
You know, there are some jobs and they're super detailed and you really need to have that area of expertise. But if you think about the roles that I've done, you need a broad knowledge as well. Like risk management, to have the project. Yes, you need to understand the product. So yes, you need to understand the market, but it's not a super technical, you know, I'm not an actuary, for example.
No,
you know, I'm not a lawyer. Like, I'm not saying you couldn't pivot into those roles, but there are lots of other roles that you can transfer your skills into if you've already shown that you're prepared to put the effort in, you work hard, you know, you're self-aware, you know your strengths, you know actually the areas that you're not so good in. Things like, I would say, you do what you say. Like, if you say you're going to do something, you deliver it.
Yes.
And people want to keep those people. Like, I know from being an employer, I'd look around and there might be somebody in a different team, and if I heard that they were looking to move, I'd be like, can we have a conversation? Like, can we see what they're interested in doing? Like, how can we? And I know you can't always change everything to suit the individual, but it's like, let's have those conversations. Let's see what might be possible.
Yeah, that's really insightful, Helen, because, you know, picking it apart a little bit, I think what you've just presented is, from your experience, is working hard, no substitute for that, getting along with people and building relationship. And the third thing that really, really struck me was being curious. So that willingness to continually learn. And then the fourth one, which of course I'm going to go blank now, was knowing yourself. That was it. So it's really knowing yourself. So working hard, being curious, getting on with people, and knowing yourself. If we take those as sort of 4 key tips, those are really helpful. But I like the idea where it sounds like you'll also ask people, rather than say, well, I know I must go from A to B to C. It sounds like you ask people, like, what do you think I could be good at? This is what I bring. What do you think? And that now makes sense as to how you've meandered through such interesting and varied roles in your financial services career, you know.
But I think it's being open to having those conversations of, do you know, this isn't working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be like, this isn't going to work for me because I've got 2 young children at home. I want to be a good mum. I want to be a good leader here. And I can't, at the moment, I can't do both of them. And, you know, there's lots of conversations around, and I get involved in them as well. Like, you know, we want to be able to do it all. And I quite often say you can do it all, but quite often not at the same time. You know,
Yeah.
I can't be the mum that's at home doing absolutely all the drop-offs, all the pickups, in all the WhatsApp groups, at every PTA. Like, I can't be full-time mum mode and full-time senior leader, managing a team, you know, dealing with big complex issues at the same time. And I think when sometimes think I should be able to do it all, it's like, for me, that's quite a sort of dangerous space to sit in. It's like, let's have a look at what you want and really what's possible. And I think that was for me the key, to sit there and just think, this isn't actually working, and to be open and saying, I can tell you why it's not working. This is what might help. Or
it's so interesting and powerful, because being really, really true to oneself and accepting reality for what it is, I think, is a starting point of making any change. Because I read it, not everything that can be faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed that isn't faced. Something along those lines. And I think where it's such a difficult balance, because till now, I mean, the burden of care and responsibilities tends to fall on mums, and yeah, I know, whether it's cost of living, aspirations, what have you, we seem to have a situation where both parties in a couple will need to work. But when I look at it and I think about it, it's quite a relatively new, in terms of the evolution of human phenomenon, where you'd have both parties working, because the dynamic, and I'm not saying right or wrong, was hunter-gatherer and then nurturer who would do that. But we now have a situation in society where we need to, you know, we want to go on holiday and do nice things and buy a nice car, or just look after the people that are important to us. Both of you work, but that dynamic in terms of who does what isn't necessarily equally distributed. And then at the same time, as you're capable, like you are, and you rise, the work responsibilities are just like, whoop, 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 whoop. Home doesn't stop. It just gets different. As you know, we talked about this. Teenagers, they'd be different. They'd be different. So
they're the hardest job. They're the hardest job you'll have.
It is, and I'm the least qualified. I don't know. I read one book about children, and the 3 kids I have they're not in the book. So I'm learning on the job.
There's no book to raise your children. Like, I know you can read all sorts of new stuff, but I can tell you there's stuff that's in books that doesn't work for my kids. Let's just leave it there.
Fair enough.
But I think it is, it's even just like you talk there about the stereotypes and the sort of biases around what we expect from work, or what we think we should do. Or as a parent, you know, it might be that we've grown up thinking that's exactly what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. That's the job I want. That's the family I want. And sometimes we get there and it's not quite what we expected. It doesn't quite play out how we thought. And it's almost having that sort of, I don't know, courage, call it whatever, to sort of stop and go, wait a minute, what do I actually want now? What's going to work for me now? You know, I thought I'd always have this job, or I thought I'd always be like this as a parent. And it's like, okay, well, now you are. What are you going to do?
Truth. And I think this is a lovely pivot to post-financial services, having had that time to do just what you just said. You got the job, getting paid the salary, got the family. This isn't working. Now what are you going to do? So tell us a bit about what came next when you started to think about using your, I can't, I've got not enough fingers, your several talents somehow, some way, because I imagine you probably got bored after a while of getting everything established and set up with the children. But that's my imagination. I don't know if that was the case for you.
Yeah, it's that, coming back to that bit about what was the net. It's not easy to think about, okay, and it is, you know, the city salaries gives you a lifestyle, like it. I've been in that world for a long time. Like that's your identity. Like, yes, I'm a parent, but there's a big identity attached to that. So it's not, and I get that with clients as well, it's not an easy decision to suddenly be like, oh, I'll go do something else. I'm not, you know, I don't want to be flippant. I thought a long time and sat with it for a long time. But when I stepped out, I did take some time out. I took some time out. I was fortunate that I could financially. I sort of was at home thinking about what next. I ran my own business for a while. I thought I'm going to do something completely different, which I did. I think I really took when I used to tell people, they used to go, you do what? You've done what?
Oh,
but
tell us. Tell us.
So when I left, I was like, right, I'm going to run my own business. I'm going to set something up. I want it to be, I'd like to say, reasonably healthy. Some people in this house might disagree, but generally healthy. I wanted to spend time with the kids. I wanted something that was fun. I wanted to learn new things. And in that sort of perfect storm of all that came along, I made and manufactured children's mini trampolines.
Love it. And I know you were going to try and gloss over it, but because that is nothing to do with your job before, but so I really wanted just for you to share that. It's amazing.
So I designed and manufactured out of China, shipped from China, had a distribution center, sold these mini trampolines. We won awards. We put them in Great Ormond Street Hospital for children, rehab. They're in Christmas gift guides. It was fun. And I quite often say to people, it's like my MBA in retail in terms of skills and whatever. But yes, I loved it. And it was I could make it work around the kids. It challenged me in a different way. And it certainly ticked a lot of boxes until it sort of didn't. And again, you get to that point where it's like, oh, I'm not sure this is now working for me. Like we got to a point where it had grown, product was established and it was selling, but it was like, it was just me, it's only me. I was becoming busier and more tied to the business. Yes, I had some freelance help, but I didn't have employees. I had a distribution center. And then it was like, is this how I see the next 5-10 years running this company? Do I want to add more products? Do I want to? And I sat and thought about it and thought, actually, this has been great. This has done what I wanted it to do for this period of time. But actually now it's time for something else. And then that's when I really, again, took some time and thought, right, out of everything. And I was tempted a few times to go back to the city on a contract, just come and cover this maternity leave. Can you just come and do this? Are you interested?
Short term, in and out.
And I thought about it because I could see, man, that could work. There are things that could work. But at that point, I thought, actually, how can I use my skills? What's important to me? What do I want to do? How does that fit into the lifestyle? And at that point, I decided that I would train to be a professional coach.
Fantastic. And I guess, yes, please, Karen.
I was just going to say, it was just around that COVID time.
Great time.
It was just around that time when I'd already committed to it. And actually, I always think things happen for a reason, but it was a perfect time. It was a perfect time in amongst what really wasn't a perfect time to actually have that focus, to learn, to have like self-awareness on steroids from going through the coach training, to really think about, actually, this is brilliant. What do I need now? How can I use everything that's gone before and all this to help other people going forwards, and to have that sort of personal and professional life that really does work. And so I qualified as a professional coach. And then who I've coached and how I've helped them has changed as the hours and the clients, there's more and more experience. Whereas now I know where I do my best work and get the best results is really, it's one-to-one coaching. So I only work one-to-one with people. It is those senior leaders, and it is in the financial services. It's a space where I get it. Like I understand the industry, I understand the challenges, and I can bring all of that with then, I would have, I'm sure, over the years informally coached in my role, but now the professional coaching is like at a different level. Like it enables me to just fully focus on the coaching and coaching those people. So that's where I sit, and that's where I've been for the past few years in terms of the coaching.
Brilliant. Yeah. So we've got this lovely sort of trajectory that you've flowed through and meandered and taken some time out, reflected, and then you've landed on self-awareness on steroids. I'm going to borrow that. If anybody hears me say it, you heard it here first. And that was the start of Helen Schoeb Consulting, sort of about 3-4 years ago. Is that roughly right?
So I started professionally coaching about 3 years ago, and I would say it didn't take very long for me to move into that financial services space. And that's because I think it's just where my connections are. It's where my network are. It's where people know me. Once you then work with people and they recommend you and refer you, so then it just builds and builds. Yeah, it goes from there.
And then I knew we'd be, you and I, our pin is at 35,000 feet, and I know you said you've got to get to London at some point. So I wanted just to talk a bit about the build on from your consulting practice and X.
Yeah.
F is that? Oh, I can't do that. I will stop. I should have thought this through. XFS.
Yeah.
And what is XFS? Because I saw it on your LinkedIn. Obviously, we talked about it, so I know a little bit of it. But for those that weren't in the conversation, what's the plan?
So the plan is like the one-to-one coaching that I do with Helen Schoeb Coaching. I really love it. Like in that space of making that, making your world of work for you wherever you're at, whatever you need. And I say I only sit in that one-to-one space. I know with coaching that it doesn't just impact the person that's sat opposite me, because I know it impacts their colleagues, it impacts their family, it impacts their friends. People come to me to help support them with their world of work, but it makes them generally a better person at home, a better parent. Like, the ripple effect of coaching is far and wide, but it's still just me and one-to-one, and I have a limited space. I work with people for 6 months, and there's a limited amount of people I can help, but I want to do more. Like, I know how transformational coaching can be. I know how it can help people, and it's around how I can do more, how I can have a bigger impact in financial services. And I was talking to somebody the other day, like, I've walked over London Bridge on that commute, it'll be thousands of times. I don't want to add them up, but it will be thousands of times. And the amount of people that are miserable, the amount of people that are stressed, fed up, whatever, like there's a lot of people that need some help and support around whatever's going on for them, however we can make that better. And so for me, it's all around, actually, coaching is a massive part of being able to help people. So I want financial services to be full of people that are super successful, but they're actually happy as well. We can say whatever your version of success is, and for some it is money, for some it's definitely not money. Whatever that version of success is, like, I'm a coach, no judgment, like, you do you, but let's get clear on what that is. Like, what do you need to be successful and be happy? Let's just work that out, and then let's just make that happen. Like, it's possible. Like, take some personal responsibility. You have choices. Let's work together to make that happen. And I think for me, it's getting coaching in financial services to be more widely available, more understood about like the difference it can make individually and for organizations. And I know some companies get it, I know some individuals get it, but it's certainly not commonly used, known across the board in financial services. So that's sort of my mission in terms of, right, okay, let's really get into financial services with people that understand financial services, that are qualified coaches, and let's really like have even bigger ripples. Let's really spread that. And I think I've been asked, and I do get asked to do things that, I'm going to be perfectly honest, they don't play to my strengths, and I just don't want to do them.
Yeah, this is about being honest. I think, like we said before, just knowing what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. And of course, yeah, there's a growth bit where you can stretch yourself, but you know where you're at, and being honest about, this isn't for me, but maybe someone else pays you up.
You know as well that time and energy is precious. So you
100%.
have to use it like to do things that do make you happy, that you are good at. So anyway, I get asked to do, I might be working with a leader and they'll be like, oh, brilliant, can you come in and do some coaching for the team? I'm like, team coaching? Not for me. Like I could do it. Yes, I could do it. I know I could do it, but is that where you're going to get the best out of me? No, the best way to work with me is absolutely one-to-one. But I know some amazing people that do team coaching from a financial services background that are qualified, and actually that's who you need to speak to. And again, it might be workshops, it might be more training, it might be actually it is one-to-one coaching, but there's loads of people that want one-to-one coaching and there's only one of me. It might be somebody meets me, and I always meet people before I work together, and it might be like, buy into coaching, I'm not sure you're the right coach for me. And it's like, I have no problem with that. Like, it's got to be a good fit. It's got to be somebody that straight away you think, yeah, I can work with them. That's the coach for me. And everyone will have their own style. Everyone will have their own approach. And there'll be people you're like, yeah, yes, you're definitely the right person. So actually me having more coaches means that actually might not be me. This is who you need. Yeah. And I think it's bringing together. My kids are like, are you assembling the Avengers? I'm like,
I love this.
I might be. But for me, it's around bringing together a small team. It's not around having, hundreds and hundreds of coaches going, oh, here's a shopping list. I've got loads of coaches. It's about me having a core group of really great qualified coaches with the right experience that all have their own ways of doing things. They all have the things that they love doing that are so valuable and needed in that space. And being able to say, right, if you come and talk to XFS Coaching Solutions, whatever you've got going on, whatever you're trying to manage, whatever you're trying to achieve, come and have a conversation with me, because I will have somebody on the team that's going to be able to help you.
That's brilliant. I think it's a marvelous idea, and really just a build from something that you're passionate about, I'm passionate about. We bond over this, but to then be able to do more, so increase the impact that you have and offer alternatives, which not everyone thinks in the way that you do. And I think it's something I have to say, from the very first moment I met you, that idea of like tribe and shared values, I think it was evident. Sat down and we were off, and you get that sort of connection sometimes, not always, sometimes it takes time, but I think having some like-minded people in that they call it like a consortium or a community, really. Community is a better word, not consortium. A community allows for what you share, like cross-pollination in terms of ideas, best practice, but also support, because touchwood, so far I've absolutely loved the journey, but there will be times perhaps you've had where you hear some really difficult things, which obviously in confidence you can't be sharing, but just having others around you that may have gone through or heard some challenging things, when
Yeah.
in a good place is really helpful. So good for you, and yeah,
Yeah.
can't wait for it to start really.
And I think it's again around how you want to work. We've talked about values, we've talked about strengths, but it's like thinking about the how you want to work, where, when, and all the rest of it. But for me, one of the things, like, if it is just you running a business, it can be challenging. Like, if that's not your natural space, like, I love collaborating, I love working in a team, I love all that sort of sharing of knowledge, sharing of learning. I love being challenged when someone's going to go, why'd you do it like that? What have you thought about? Have you thought about this? And I'm like, oh, love it. No. And so for me, like, as an exec coach and sort of running that business myself, it's great. I love it. And I'm thinking, like, how could it be better? I tell you how it could be better. I could have a bigger impact. I could get a team of people, like you say, like-minded people that are all, open for continually learning, looking at best practice, delivering best service, and working together around, right, how are we going to do this? Like, who do we need to help? And it's having that sort of co-creation of getting the coaching out there to the people that need it. Yeah, so that's, and there is a big part of, like, I work better when I'm collaborating with people as well, when you can bounce ideas off people, where you can say, look, we've got this over here, how can we solve that? What can we do for them? Celebrating that sort of success. And anyways, gosh, we could talk for long.
We could get into, but it makes sense. And this is why, at the beginning I said to you, like, my sister, in that people be like, hey, how are you going to say that Helen's your sister? But I think, family extends beyond blood ties to, for me, people that have a shared values. And one of my favorite expressions, one that I kind of live by, and I'll ask you for yours actually, is I use my joy as my GPS. So simply, I surround myself with the people, in the places, doing the pursuits that uplift me and fill me with joy. So when we met and we have breakfast, I uplifted, spring my step, off I went for the rest of the day. Now, I'm not saying you get all three of them at the same time, but I think with XFS, you've got the opportunity to work with the people doing the pursuits that you love. So you've got a double whammy. The trilogy would be in the places that we like. So whether that's international or supporting clients here and there elsewhere. So it's it's a mantra that I live by. And actually, let me ask you if there's, as we're on the topic, any sort of mantras that you hold dear to your heart when you move through your day or your life.
There's a lot. That's almost like asking me to, like, choose my favorite kid, Kofi. Like,
we'll give you two, because there's more questions and we haven't even got it. And you must get to London. You said you've got to get to London.
I think one of the things that I would say is we're always work in progress. So we need to continually keep learning. So for me, that is, it's really important, like, to just know that we're just, keep moving. There's different things to do it. Like, just be open, be curious, be mindful, be reflective of, like, we've said it quite a lot here, like, what is and isn't working. Like, we're work in progress. Keep at it, keep learning. That's it. And I think it is the other, and again, we've probably said it before, it's not necessarily a mantra, but it is just that, like, life's too short to be unhappy. And we get to choose how to be, what we need to do to be happy. That's where I think, if we're not happy, that's down to us. That's something that we have to take personal responsibility for, to look and see, what can I do to change that? Like, what's within. And I get there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on that's outside of our control that can make us very unhappy. I'm not toxic positivity going, everything's great, like, let's all just choose to be happy. That's Kofi, that's not me.
No.
But there is an element of, okay, what can we control? What can we influence? What's outside of our control? And there is some stuff that's going to be pretty rubbish that's outside of our control. We'll have to work on accepting that. But it's around, okay, we don't have an endless supply of time.
No.
So let's really think about how we're going to use that. We get to choose how we use that. We get to make those choices.
100%. I feel like it speaks to the intentionality theme that runs through, me saying use your joy as your GPS.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that time is limited, but I'm saying if I've got my time, where do I want to spend it? And I think the last few years for me have been fascinating insofar as the friendship circle, family circles, you name it, have just really consolidated and condensed. And there are some that have walked through, the fires and the forging fires, I call them, that I've been through, and others that haven't. But having fewer people to spread yourself or share yourself with, not spread yourself, it's quality over quantity. And I think time is the one commodity that you're not getting it back. You spend it wisely or else. So sometimes it's hard, because I feel like, in that moment where you say, if you're not happy, sometimes I can see it, personal experience or from others, you can be going along the tide, much like a salmon swimming down the stream. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's going to university or getting a job or buying a house or getting married or having a child. And to the outside world, all of that, getting a great job and buying a nice car, it just looks hunky-dory, doesn't it? It looks amazing. So then to step away from that and say, I don't want this anymore. The money, the relationships, the whatever, I don't want it anymore, and stop. You kind of find people might look at you like this. And so I feel sometimes for some, that sort of fear of what others will perceive your decisions to be traps you in a sort of place of, I just better keep going and keep going and keep going until one day you just can't, So I think you do to try and encourage people to lean into the personal responsibility of making themselves happy, essentially, what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think it's right, like hearing you talk there and talking about the intention, like it is having the intention, but also, and I do sometimes ask my clients around, like, whose opinion actually matters, because there is a lot of, what will people think, or I think I should do this, or, actually, let's be honest, like whose opinion on what you do really matters. Let's dig into that. And that can sometimes start off some fascinating conversations around, actually, why am I bothered about what those people think about what I do and what I don't do, how I spend my time, or how successful, or what my version of success is, like what's going on there. And that can sometimes be like a really great conversation and a great sort of piece of insight to be like, actually,
Yeah, you're right. And I don't know if you've read this. I know we've got some similar books on but there is a book called The Courage to Be Disliked. Have you read that one?
I haven't, no.
No, so I know we do book exchange. We've got our own virtual book club, so I add this one to it. But that for me was one of the foundational books in just changing aspects of my life, because it allowed me to really think about why I did what I did, much like you described there. And I went back and realized that from a very young age, I like this idea of being liked. I like the idea of people, liking me. It was something that wasn't always common in the childhood. But so then I realized that unbeknownst, I'd become someone who didn't want to disappoint people, didn't want to be disliked. And so I would go along with, things and not necessarily put my own voice forward. And when I read that book, it really forced me to take that step back and look at why I'd done the things, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, to be in certain relationships or situations or what have you. And then I was like, yeah, but if you're trying to please everyone, then you're never really free, because then the minute you do something that is personal to you, that you like, could be go to Billie Eilish. Someone else would say, Jamiroquai is my thing, but you want to go to Billie Eilish. You do the thing that you want and someone else disapproves of it. If you don't do it, then you're never really free, because you're always listening to someone else. And I think with 8 billion people, we have a duty and obligation to embrace our individuality and just live our best lives for us and find your tribe, because those that do have love and care and whatever for you, support you, they won't be judging you. They're too busy loving you to be doing that. So yeah, that book, we'll add it to our book club list.
Yeah, no, it's like you say, it's really common that those childhood experiences, or wherever it's come from, something will shape our view of the world,
You're
something
right.
will shape our behaviours. And as you say, sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's subconscious, but there will be something, and maybe it's a book you read, maybe it's a coach that will ask you a question, or they'll gently challenge on things, and then it's just like, okay, I might need to think about whether that still serves me to have that belief or to have that view of the world, or maybe I might need to make some changes.
Yeah,
Maybe you don't. Maybe it's just an insight, and maybe like, okay, that's interesting to understand that. I'm glad I now understand that, but that's fine. That's enough for me. Or it might be like, actually, I need to do less of that and do more of this. So
that's brilliant. That is brilliant. And I'm going to suggest that we bring the landing gear down from our aeroplane. We're at 30,000, and if I ask you to speak again, you won't if you miss your appointment in London. So before we go, one of the things that I did want to ask you about was around the key lessons from leadership. Knowing that you speak to leaders, but knowing that you are also a leader and have been a leader, if you could impart any of the wisdom that you picked up along the way to someone on that journey, wanting to be a better leader, what are some of the things that you would lean to that you've learned along the way?
It's interesting. I do career reflections, as you know, because I did one on LinkedIn, but I do career reflections now on a weekly basis where I ask people to reflect on their lessons learned, and I find it fascinating what people, there are key themes. I think once I get to this point where there's like, I have so many of them, I'm going to do something else with it in terms of pulling together these key themes that I see regularly. I think for me and for leaders, it's around that self-awareness, that knowing what it is that is important to you, what your strengths are, how you want to work, when you want to work, like actually like think about it, like really understand what's going to make you tick. And then how are you going to use that? And I think from the lessons, it's to pull out some of the themes. It is knowing what you want. It's knowing that you have choices. It's to be courageous to make those change, to know that actually you're not the only one that feels like you feel, whether that is because you're lacking confidence, maybe that is because you think you should know. Generally, everyone's in the same sort of boat. Like, the amount of times when I have the conversations, and people are like, I know I should, I know it must just be me. I guarantee it's not just you. And so I think it's like having that confidence that it's not just you, and that everyone's got similar sort of challenges, to understand yourself, be yourself, to have a plan, to have goals, but actually know that they can change, and that's okay. For me, we talked about it. It comes, I'm trying to think about the career reflections. Obviously, I haven't prepared this very well, Kofi, but like on the career reflections, it comes quite often. People talk about like certain people, the impact that certain managers have had, or that one person, or the power of a network, which I don't think everybody realizes at the start of their career. Or, you know, like if you're new into a role, like when I work with people when they're new into a leadership role, and this is the lesson, it's like, who do you need to build those relationships with? Like, who is it you need to spend the time with? Who is it that's going to be in that sort of that tribe? It's making me think, and that's not a very succinct for you.
But I think there's so many gems in there that would be useful for people along the way, because as I, you know, we're on the same page in that there isn't a one size that fits all approach, and depending on where someone is on their journey or where their strengths come out, you know, they may need more or less of something than the other. But I think one of the things that stood out for me was the network piece. I've got this thing with networking where I know we are the same, because you then explained it. It for me, it's not transactional, but it's about relationship building, as you say. And I, you know, with the career reflections I shared with you, it's really, I've never subscribed to the view of doing something because you're going to get something back. I do what I do without keeping receipts. And the beauty of being in the right type of tribe is that you never have to worry and split the bill and say, oh, well, I had 2 of the prawns and you had 4, so I'm only going to pay 2.6. Well, that's a third. No, and we just don't do it out of love and generosity. Now, different if you've got financial challenges, but generally we're helping each other. So I don't do things for what I'm going to get back. I do things because there is love and mutual support, etc. So I really want to sort of land on that with people when they talk about networking. And then the first thing they say is like, well, what can you do for me? Or what can I have? And I'm like, this is all wrong. It's really be curious about the individual. Do we align? Do we have common values? You know, our relationship is exactly that. Like, it wasn't, can I have something, Helen, please? But we are here sharing platforms and sharing support for one another and wanting to see each other win because we've got the same values. So I think that's the bit that I really, not this about me, but draw people's attention to from what you've said, because I think that's really a key thing. Yeah.
Coming back to, it's always about the people, isn't it?
You said, yeah, you did say that. You did say that. People by people. So, oh, that's fantastic. Well, last question, I promise, before you go. Oh, God, sorry.
Are you going to make me run for this tray? It's okay.
Have you got like literally
No,
1.5
it's fine. Yeah, no, I've got it. Go on.
Okay, this is going to be on you. If it goes over 1.5 minutes, Helen, this is on you.
No problem. Go for it.
What would you like the legacy of your work to look like?
Well, that's a biggie. Thought you were going to ask me like, what's your favorite gig? Or anyway, the legacy. I think it's around the power of coaching. And I know there's a lot of people in this space and there's a lot of people saying the same things, but I just want to be one of those people that really was banging on about the power of coaching. One of those people that wanted people to understand the impact that it can have and to take advantage of that and to use it to make their personal and professional lives like the best that it can be.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. And, you know, I co-authored a book on the power of coaching, and it's a year ago. I can't believe it's a year ago. But I think that really sums it up. And it's not like, oh, there's the book that I'm leaving. But I think the title of the power of coaching, and in it I wrote about career fulfillment. That's what I want the legacy to be. People to know that actually through coaching, it can make a big difference. I want to see some more smiles of those faces as they're going over London Bridge, commuting into that city.
That would be something. I think Carlito, he fully subscribes and agrees. He's decided to give me some acupuncture while I'm trying to chat to you.
I love it. You know, it's really lucky if a black cat, I don't know if this is just a Manx thing or not, maybe, you know, I quite often say things and people will look at me and go, no, I think that might just be an Isle of Man thing. But it is really lucky to have a black cat cross your path, isn't it?
Well, I think so. I think so. I should have shut the door. As we're talking, he's just come at the back of the chair. He's like,
yeah.
But coming back to your question, I know you've got to go, or your answer is, that would be so awesome to have more people across London Bridge smiling, because, yeah, the work that we do, transforming and supporting people on their journeys, whether it's career fulfillment, whether it's being a better leader, whatever it is, that self-love, happiness, fulfillment that radiates out has that ripple effect, like you said, isn't it? In terms of, it's not just their employees or the team, it's not just the relationship they got upwards, but it's every place, every table they sit at will feel the benefit of someone that is happier and is on their path some way, shape, or form better because of the work that, you know, you've done. So I think that's a really juicy goal to have, and you're well on your way. I mean, you've been doing it and you're growing, and XFS is going to be amazing. I can already feel it, because how we do anything can be how we do everything. And I think you've just shown that you've killed it all throughout your career, and always stop to ask the questions, how can this be better, and how can it work for me better? So yeah, wishing you all the success, and can't wait to be a part of the journey and the story going forward.
Thank you so much. I've loved this.
It's been amazing. I literally, if you hadn't told me you've got a train to catch, we're still talking to another 45 minutes.
But that shows you, doesn't it, the passion and the love for something, where like you literally, I just feel it. Like I could talk about it all day, every day.
Yeah, no, this is people, places, pursuits. So one day we're going to do all three. So we do some coaching in somewhere lovely with one another. It'd be brilliant. So I can't wait. But yeah, we'll catch up very soon. And thanks for making the time. Have an awesome day, and go and shine your light like you always do, Helen.
Thanks, Kofi. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.